Welcome to this tutorial on inheritance in Java. So what exactly is inheritance? Inheritance is the mechanism of basing an object or class upon another object or class retaining similar implementation. When we talk about implementation, we are talking about state variables and methods. So let's take a look at it in a real-life perspective. First, we have a parent who, let's say, has blonde hair. Now, generally a parent would have a child, and such child would inherit their genes from them, such as having blonde hair. If we take a look at this from a coding point of view, this means that we would have a parent class, which would be our superclass. The superclass is the class that is inherited from. If they have methods such as getName and a state variable as name, then when they create another class that is inheriting from it, such as a child class here, which is its subclass, it would share these same methods and state variables without having to recreate them. Let's take a look at another example. Here we have a teacher class. The teacher class has 4 state variables that it is going to share with another class: height, weight, name, and age. It also has 2 other variables that is not going to share because they are unique to the teacher class, and they are the subject and the teacher ID. Here we have a student class, and the student class is going to share a bunch of these values, namely the height, weight, name, and age. Notice how it does not share the subject or the teacher ID. Instead, it has its own unique state variables, such as the student ID and the grade. Now, instead of copying and pasting all of these same values between the 2 classes, we are instead going to change them and make them into subclasses. They will both inherit from the same class, namely a person class, which has the height, weight, name, and age classes defined in them. This means that when we create our student and our teacher class, we no longer have to write all these extra variables upon their creation. Let's take a look at this when we code it in Java. Okay, so before we get a look at our classes Rectangle and RectPrism, we're just going to go over something very quickly with inheritance. The superclass, as I said before, is the class being inherited from. The subclass is the class that is doing the inheriting. In Java, in order to do this, you need to use the extends keyword. This will extend and create inheritance within your program, meaning that it will take all of the methods and state variables from your superclass. The exception to this is that private methods are not inherited. These methods are only accessible by the original class themselves and will not be included in the inherited classes. So first we have a class here called Rectangle. It is a very simple class. It has a length, it has a width, a constructor which takes in a length and a width, and 2 getter methods, which will return the width and the length. Notice that you cannot alter these rectangles in any way. They are just simple rectangles that you can create. Next up, we have our RectPrism, or in other words, rectangular prism. And you'll notice that in this class, it is extending the rectangle. When we add the word extends and the name of the class which we are going to extend from in Java, this means that inheritance will proceed. This means that also inside of Rectangle now, all of our variables and methods will have been copied over into here, so we don't have to write them out. The only thing that is not copied is the constructor. So we need to create a constructor for the rectangular prism. So I have public RectPrism, and I'm taking in 3 different parameters: the length, the width, and the height. And then I have something in here that says super, and then I have length, comma, width. Super will run the constructor from my class in which I am inheriting from. In other words, my superclass. That's why it is called super. This means it will run the constructor from Rectangle and assign length and width to the appropriate variables. Then we will run this.height is assigned to the height which I received from the constructor. And then I have a getHeight method, which I will be adding to Rectangular Prism, since it is required to have 3 dimensions instead of 2. This is a basic idea of how inheritance works when we are creating new classes that inherit from other classes because maybe they are a subset of them. We don't want to be rewriting all of the same code, so we will use inheritance to make sure that we don't have to. This also means that if there is something that we need to fix in the original code, it will be fixed in anything that extends from it, since any changes that are made to our rectangle class will be reflected in our rectangular prism class. That concludes this lesson on inheritance. Thank you for watching and have a great day.